let me go over that with you briefly. The first two items are minutes from your January meetings, the regular minutes, and the workshop minutes. Following that, you've got a request from Aquatic Adventures for street closing ordinance. This is related to an event that would, combination swimming, running event that would take place in Kevin Loftin Park on July 22nd, 2023. You actually adopted a resolution on this sometime back, but that was for May, and they have decided, given the weather or the temperature of the river at that point, for the swimming portion to shift this to July 22nd. So they're needing to go back through the same process on the street closings for the running portion of that event, which would take place in East Belmont. The next item, number 4, this ordinance would authorize alcoholic beverages in Kevin Loftin Park for the Catawba Riverkeeper Foundation's annual RiverFest event. That would be Saturday, May 13th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Item number 5, this item we're addressing now is the one that the ordinance was set out before you this evening. It was added to the agenda material online, but I set that out this evening in case you didn't get a chance to see that. This is also requesting an ordinance for sale, possession, consumption of alcoholic beverages. This would be for the Garibaldi Festival on Saturday, April 29th from noon to 10 p.m. in Stowe Park. Similarly, you have item number 6, also requesting the same provisions for alcoholic beverages. This is for the Friday Night Live concert series. There are 5 dates included in that resolution: April 28th, May 12th, June 2nd, 16th, and 30th. On each of those evenings that would run from 5 to 11 p.m. In addition to the alcoholic beverages, that resolution or ordinance also includes a provision of 8 porta-johns and some in-kind services on behalf of our Public Works and Police Department for those events. Item number 7 is another street closing ordinance. This is in relation to our annual Belmont Classic 5K. This is the 19th annual version of this event, sponsored by the Belmont Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association. This race will be run on Saturday, April 22nd. The street closing would run from 8 to 10:30 a.m. and there are a number of streets involved. The closing is just the right lane of each of those designated streets, and does also include a provision for music and a DJ at the police department for that event. And then item number 8 on the consent agenda, resolution of support for a RAISE grant application for Catawba crossings. This is actually an application that's going in under Gaston County's name on behalf of the MPO, and this would be to obtain funding for conducting preparing environmental documents related to the Catawba Crossings project, the bridge project over the Catawba River. There's no funding, either request or requirement on the part of the city. This is just a resolution of support for that application, which, if funded, it would allow them to go ahead with some of the NEPA requirements that will be required at whatever point in time we're getting nearer for construction of that project. So that addresses the consent agenda. I would also just mention that there was set out before you this evening a revised document related to the annexation petition that you'd be acting on tonight. There's a new ordinance for that, just changing some references within that document. So, okay, are there any questions?
I had a question regarding the RAISE grant. reading through it, going to the website, the deadline is February 28th, and I know we're going in conjunction with Gaston County, I think Cramerton and some other folks on this
Yeah,
request.
Cramerton and Gaston County and Gastonia too, I believe.
Was there an opportunity for Belmont to maybe do a standalone request for some of our road projects?
I mean, probably if we'd had enough time to prepare, this was something, Tiffany can help me out with this, that was brought to us to support theirs because this dealt with an existing project that had been initiated and was taking another step in the process. Since we didn't have anything designated that we were seeking that kind of funding for, or any kind of ready project to move forward with, I think that would be the main issue there.
Okay. I mean, I'm just asking. I didn't know if it was a viable option or not, but it sounds like it's pretty involved. Okay. That's the only question I had.
Okay. That should cover it then.
Let's call a meeting to order. Okay. Jim, you want to do the pledge?
I could do the invocation.
Invocation, all right. Mark, you want to do the pledge?
Well, we need to pray first.
Okay.
Yes.
That's not important to you.
Yeah. Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings you've bestowed in our community. We thank you for our health and well-being. We pray that you grant us the wisdom to make wise and judicious decisions as we conduct city business. And we ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance
to
to the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Jim, you want to set the agenda?
Do we need
Little recognition, I believe.
Yeah.
Conditions and acknowledgements. This is for, hold on.
Year of the Trail.
I read before. I got it. Yeah, right here. Ah. All right, proclamation recognizing the Year of the Trail. Okay. Barry, you want to?
I think just to summarize that, I'm not sure if we need to read the whole Belmont in proclaiming Year of the Trail here in Belmont as well for 2023 to match the state's action.
Well, now therefore I, Charles Martin, Mayor of the City of Belmont, do hereby proclaim 2023 as the Year of the Trail, and Belmont, North Carolina is commend its observance to all people. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right.
Now I'll move to set the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. First item. Public comment. Anybody signed up for public comment?
No.
Huh?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. How you doing, Matt?
Great.
Good.
Matt Hart, 2519 Shannon Drive in Belmont. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'd like to note that I'm coming here tonight speaking on behalf of the City of Belmont Planning and Zoning Board, acting as their chairman currently, to provide a brief in-person update on 3 items in the meeting minutes that have already been provided to you from our January 19th meeting. First, the Planning and Zoning Board is interested in hearing the key drivers to reconsider the major development plan process and its effect on other special use, conditional zoning, and administrative processes. You may be aware of a recent development where staff located language in 160D, which may rule out conditional zoning as a replacement option. As a follow-up, we've asked staff to consult with the city attorney for a legal interpretation of this state statute. We want to be sure our technical expertise related to these requests is not only being utilized to their full extent during action of this request as it came from this city council. Second, as we consider modifying the land development code for density on the peninsula, we would like to convene a joint workshop or hear from 1 to 2 key city council members at an upcoming planning and zoning board meeting so that we may combine the technical expertise of the planning board with the oversight and direction of this city council. We want to be sure that we are making sound planning decisions which set the city of Belmont up for success not only for tomorrow, but also in the future. Third, as it relates to the recently passed interim changes in the land development code related to apartment building form, the members of the Planning and Zoning Board are poised to discuss next steps on this issue during our board meetings for the foreseeable future. We will be dialed in on recommendations for our comprehensive land use plan and land development code related to sound planning principles and housing options that fit seamlessly into the fabric of Belmont while providing diverse and attainable housing solutions for each and every citizen. Your packet includes additional information related to these topics, and we look forward to seeing each of you at a future joint workshop or upcoming planning and zoning board meetings where you are all encouraged to attend and participate. I'd also like to offer that I can direct staff to provide you my contact information if you wish to ever contact me via email or my cell phone. Always available. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. All right, public hearing, Dentworthy.
Oh, wait, don't we have the School Street annexation? We need to at least open that hearing. Parks.
Item 2.
So I think the mayor's looking at the original version that didn't include that item.
Where's
Yeah.
School Street?
Yeah, hold on.
I wonder why.
Hot off the presses.
Okay.
Well, maybe before, Richard made the motion, Alex seconded. Right, that's correct. So,
Mayor,
School
you have
Street.
a motion and second to go into public hearing. You want to call for a vote?
How many want to go into public hearing?
aye.
Okay, everybody, public hearing, okay.
Is somebody going to speak on this?
We can have planning back up if need be. What wanted to relay to you this evening about this is you may remember we've had some back and forth on this particular item. First about signatures when it was first filed, and then later about contiguous versus non-contiguous annexation request. Because there has been some change on this and some final determination that this is actually would be a non-contiguous request rather than contiguous. To be sure we get the wording straight in the various documents and advertising, we're just going to ask that this hearing will be closed following comment, and then it'll be re-advertised and started over.
It'll be continued.
Well, we talked about that, but we thought maybe we needed to just start over fresh.
Re-advertise? Okay. I didn't get that message.
And no, that changed from when you and I talked this morning.
Okay. Well, you need. I recommend you do that. Re-advertise as non-contiguous.
Yeah. So then it would just be a motion to close the public hearing and there'd be no further disposition?
there'd be a new public hearing commenced rather than a continued public hearing. It'd be a fresh public hearing at the March 6th meeting. So I'd say you would close the public hearing.
That makes
Motion
sense.
to close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public hearing for the Dent Wizard.
Make a motion for a public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is zoning map amendment 2019.01A, Dent Wizard. And this is a request to amend an approved conditional zoning district for the Dent Wizard site to allow for an expansion of 1.91 acres to create more available parking spaces for their business operations. For the record, parcel ID numbers and subject are 185-780, 185-785, and 185-766. The current zoning districts include highway commercial, conditional district, business campus development, and rural residential. However, the proposed zoning for the entire site is highway commercial condition. Do you have any questions? So looking at the site, the existing Dent Wizard site is in blue, or outlined in blue. This is the current site for business operations. This was originally approved in 2019 with an existing acreage of 1.62 acres. This parcel is within city limits. However, with the addition, which is outlined in red, that the applicant is proposing for the additional parking spaces, this would add 1.91 acres to the site. And I just want to point out that these two parcels are not within city limits, so annexation approval is needed for this project. This would bring the total acreage up to 3.53 acres if approved.
They're in the ETJ, right?
Yes.
Okay.
As for surrounding zoning districts, the existing Dent Wizard site is highway commercial conditional district. And then as already stated, the existing zoning for the northern parcel, the northern subject parcel is business campus development, or excuse me, rural residential, and then the southern parcel is business campus development. Surrounding zoning districts include rural residential and highway commercial. For the southern property that's owned business campus development, the highway corridor overlay, the HCO, is applied. So this is applied to all parcels along Wilkinson Boulevard. For 10 conditions of approval, which is found in attachment B of the staff report. Two of the areas of relief that were approved during this process included a reduction of the lot frontage and lot acreage, as well as a 15-foot buffer along property zoned general residential and rural residential. So here you'll see the proposed plan, and just for size-wise, it is oriented a little bit differently. So you'll see Mason Street, which is along the bottom. That's actually along the western portion of the site, and then Wilkinson Boulevard on the right-hand side of the screen is the southern portion. But this site plan shows 140 additional parking spaces with access off of Mason Street and the existing Dent Wizard site. There is a tree save area, buffers, sidewalk, landscape, all in which comply with the Land Development Code. So for performance standards in the highway commercial zone, we look at things like parking, buffers, tree save, district size, frontages, buffers, sidewalks, things like that. The project is in compliance with all of these items, and we'll talk a little bit more about the district size here in a minute. So for the highway commercial district, our ordinance requires a 2-acre site minimum and 200 linear feet of road frontage. So during the initial approval, this was an area of relief. So it was granted, so the existing site is 1.62 acres with 150 linear feet. So that's shown right there. With the expansion, that's almost an additional 2 acres and an additional 200 linear feet of road frontage. So this actually brings the site into compliance, and this area is no longer an area of relief that's needed for the project site as a whole. As for buffers, this was the other area of relief that was originally approved back in 2019. This is a 15-foot buffer that was an area of relief between the site and the adjacent general residential zoning districts. So this was approved with the original site plan and is to remain, considering the existing site is, the applicants are proposing no changes to this site. However, with the addition to the site, there is type A buffer along what we're considering the rear property line around Barnes Street. This would be like required for any zoning district in between rural residential or general residential as stated in our land development code. So this is what the applicant is proposing, and it is also being identified as their tree save area or a portion of it. Our ordinance also discusses type B buffer along parking lot perimeters. So as you can see here on your screen in blue, the applicants are proposing type B buffer along Mason Street, Wilkinson Boulevard, and the existing Dent Wizard site. This is a minimum of a 10-foot buffer. For the environmental setting, it's currently wooded. The applicants per Chapter 11 of the Land Development Code were required to perform a tree inventory and tree survey. Per the ordinance, they were required to save about 8,700 square feet of tree save area, and they're proposing a little bit more than that, coming in at 9,200 square feet. They are saving, per the ordinance, 1/2 of the required tree save must be met utilizing the existing trees, and the rest will be through replantings, and they do meet that requirement as well. And the tree save area is shown there. Looking at transportation, staff did confirm that with the site expansion, that a traffic study would not be needed for the conditional zoning district amendment. Mason Street and Wilkinson Boulevard are both NCDOT roads, so we did route this to the state to see if they had any comments, and we did not receive any comments regarding this project. Per the ordinance, the applicants did hold their required 2 neighborhood meetings. They held these on Tuesday, January 3rd. One was in person at Exodus Church at 1 p.m. One was at Zoom on the same day at 6 p.m. And there were no members of the public at either one of the meetings. Staff looked at the comprehensive land use plan. This is located within the mixed use district. So this includes a vision of medium to high density residential uses, commercial, office, and civic uses as well. Staff is of the opinion that the proposed project is consistent with the vision of the comp plan. It proposes an expansion of an existing commercial use, and it also supports the auto-centric Wilkinson Boulevard corridor. This project went to Planning Board on January 19th. There were no public comments. The board discussed the buffer locations and classifications, and they actually ended up making a motion to approve with some modifications. So these modifications included redesignating the type A buffer adjacent to Barnes Street to tree save area. Our ordinance says anything adjacent to, I guess in between adjacent zoning districts would require this buffer, and they felt that since there was a street there, it didn't necessarily need to be a 30-foot buffer. So staff has, based on the planning board recommendation, struck type A buffer and just classifying it as a tree save area with any supplemental plantings that may be needed to enhance that area. They also discussed removing the type B buffer adjacent to the existing site. When staff was initially looking at it, we looked at it just as this site specifically, not necessarily with how this would work when the parcels would be recombined if approved. So the planning board felt as though the type B buffer on the right-hand side of the project could be removed. They didn't think that they needed to really buffer from themselves. So since this will be one site that's operational as a whole, planning board recommended removing that type B buffer on that side of the project. Another modification was just including text in the conditions of approval to make sure that all parcels, if approved and recombined, would be highway commercial conditional district, and we added that in condition 12. So in summary, this is a request to amend an approved conditional zoning district for the Dent Wizard site. We did modify condition number 1 in your packet. We removed condition number 1A, which included the district requirements for from frontage and acreage, since that's no longer an area of relief. We also added conditions 11 and 12. These include kind of our catch-all, just must comply with any city ordinances and things like that. And then also that a recombination plat for all of the parcels must be processed with the city. So with that, I ask the city council to receive the report, hear any public comment, and consider the planning board's recommendations with conditional zoning amendments. There is a motion with options to approve as presented, as modified, or disapprove. And then as well, 2 findings must be met, and that is that it is a reasonable request and in the public interest, and it is consistent with the goals of the comp plan. So with that, I am here to answer any questions.
All the sidewalks in the area comply with what we require.
We do. So they're proposing a 10-foot multi-use path along Wilkinson and then an 8-foot along Mason Street.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
Just a couple
Okay.
to clarify.
Sure.
So if the business is not open to the public, as I believe established, these additional parking spaces are for the fleet of vehicles. My understanding is the site services commercial vehicles, commercial fleets, so they would park those vehicles there while waiting to be serviced, as opposed to cars coming to and from the parking lot to partake in the business. Is that
Sure.
correct?
Yes, that is my understanding, and then the applicant is here too if you have further questions on that.
Okay.
But yes, that's,
So these will be vehicles in need of repair.
yes.
Okay.
And it seems as though no areas of relief are actually required for these new parcels. They're only going to be conditional because they are being ultimately absorbed into the existing conditional district. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Okay. And just along the lines of my first question, because this is not open to the public and they're servicing commercial fleets, I believe the condition continues that if for some reason the business model changed and it was open to the public, there would be, city approval would be required, and there might be additional traffic analysis or whatever that would need to be done.
Yes. If they do have any change in use, they're required to come back to us, and then we would evaluate from there.
And just, can you explain the rationale behind the recommendation to change the type A buffer to the tree saver? Is that like 6 of one, half dozen of the other? Because it seemed like it met the buffer requirement, so I don't.
It did, and I think it was just planning boards. So if you look on, let me see here. So this is the buffer that's already in action right now. So these parcels are directly adjacent to each other. So you have general residential up here and then highway commercial here. So our ordinance would require 30-foot buffer there. So the approved site plan was 15 right here. So we took the same approach because there are residential homes up here that are zoned rural residential, but planning board, since this is technically a right of way, they just recommended that a type A buffer wasn't necessarily needed, and they just asked that we reclassify it as a safe area.
Okay. We have one person signed up to speak.
Let me ask you one other question. These currently are 2 separate parcels.
3 if you count the existing, but yes,
Okay, are they going to be all combined into one parcel?
they are. That's a condition of approval.
Okay, and that's a function of the county. Is that right?
They'll process a recombo plat with us and Gaston record it with Gaston County Register of Deeds.
Okay, and the relief that they're seeking is predicated upon all of that being approved regarding the linear footage that you were talking about.
So the area of relief is on the existing parcel up there in blue. So we wouldn't look at that for the recombo. We are just requiring the recombination plat to occur. So this is all on one site, all of the same zonings and things like that. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have one person signed up to speak. Daniel Marshall.
And that's the applicant, so he's here if y'all have any questions.
Yeah. State your name and address.
Daniel Marche, 1034 Guilford Road, Charlotte, North Carolina 28209.
Okay.
I represent the ownership group of 6213 Wilkinson Boulevard, where Dent Wizard is currently in operation. They've been in operation since 2019 at that location. The ownership group is looking or in the process of acquiring these two adjacent parcels to create more parking for Dent Wizard's operation because quite frankly, they're busting at the seams and need parking for operations to continue at that location.
Anybody have any questions for Daniel? Yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Make a motion to come out of public
Motion to
hearing.
come out of public comment,
Hearing.
hearing.
Nobody.
Second.
All in favor?
Make a motion to come out of public hearing.
Alex made such a motion.
We have a motion and a
All in
second.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. All right, item C4, consider the adoption of an ordinance approving Dent Wizard a request to amend an approved conditional zoning district to expand the site by 1.9 acres to create more available parking spaces for business operations.
I would move to approve as modified by the planning board.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I would also move that this conditional zoning petition is a reasonable request in the public interest and is consistent with the goals of the adopted comprehensive land use plan and land use and economy.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Next item on the agenda is public hearing for the contiguous annexation request for two parcels at the corner of Mason Street and Wilkinson Boulevard.
Motion to go into public hearing.
Second. Go ahead.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Peyton, you on this one too? Yeah.
Parcel number. Parcel numbers 1857880 and 1857666. One's zone business campus development and one is, well, I guess no longer zone rural residential. Are there any questions?
Do you have any questions?
I don't.
All right. I want to make a motion to come out of public hearing. We have Daniel signed up to sign for that one too, so,
Just in case there are any questions.
okay.
Motion to come out of public hearing.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're out of public hearing, okay. Now we have a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the annexation ordinance as presented.
Second. Oh, sorry.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving right along, guys. Now, Duke Energy EV charging station grant, revised location discussion. Barry, you want to take?
We actually have a representative from the Environmental Sustainability Board that's going to be addressing that.
Okay. How you doing?
I'm Becky Carpenter. I'm also a member of the Environmental Sustainability Board.
We are looking at a grant from Duke Energy to place these EV chargers, and want to give you a little background on what we're looking at here. This will be a 5-year term, potential 1-year extension. City of Belmont would have no cost. Council approved location at Glenway parking lot in May, but Duke Energy did not approve this location. The reason that location is not approved is the facilities have to be located on city property. So we can't put them on anything that's private, even if the guys want them there. So what we're coming back to you with is a couple of sites that we've identified that y'all can look at. Obviously, we know parking's an issue in Uptown Belmont, but we're only looking at about 3 of these, and they tend to draw higher income people into town and tend to spend more money in town. So we think it's probably worth it. We don't know where EVs go or anything. Obviously, I'm an electrical engineer. I work on the power system, and I can't tell you what the long-term view of this is, but right now we've got an opportunity to kind of do a test drive here, you might say, with no cost to us. So that's kind of why we're interested in doing this.
Okay.
You can see where we're looking right now is the behind City Hall that we're looking at downtown, and the Ford Center, and across from Stowe Park, 2 Chicks, got the parcels ID'd, and these are places that would draw people that would want to spend money in town. I mean, we could put them out in the middle of nowhere. Charlotte certainly did that with a couple of them, so I'm not sure that was money well spent by anybody. So we've identified these proposed locations as for consideration for y'all.
So
Anybody
just
have
to
any
reiterate,
questions?
sorry, go ahead.
So could we go over, like, we say we put one at one of the locations or the 2 at the locations. What's the plan for, let's say it's a Friday Night Live and that's an open spot and there's not a Tesla or an electric vehicle there, and someone just parks there that's not an electric vehicle? I mean, do we have any type of repercussions, or is that going to be allowed? Because parking is a premium in downtown Belmont, particularly during our events.
Well, obviously, we prefer this to be for an EV, and I think we need to market as EV-only spots. And there's only 3 of them, so I don't.
Is it 3 or 2?
I believe it's 2.
It may just be 2.
it's
Yes, 2. So we're looking at So we're looking at 2 spots.
Okay.
And I think the chances of somebody coming up there with an EV for 2 spots is pretty good, and we just market as such.
So,
Well, we're talking about the stage as we looked at before. People traveling, they're coming through, have a place to charge, and they're more appealing to EV users. And as I said, it tends to draw a higher end group, because I mean, look, let's be honest, EVs are expensive, and I'm not sure they're going to get very inexpensive anytime soon. So,
Well, I just saw the president in one that was like $87,000 or something.
Probably
like
so.
that. Yeah.
and the quote to me has been, "They're fun to drive." Well, I've never driven one myself. I'm an old country farm boy, so I don't know what that would be like. I still think a stick shift's fun to drive, so that's just where I'm locked in. So, but reallocation of cars already parked downtown, they are becoming more prominent. I mean, I can't tell you that how many we're going to have parked down there this Friday night or any week, but I think if you were to go down there and take a bit of the census, you'd see a few of them down there. Certainly more than 2. I mean, they used to have them out at I guess Old Stone, and they're not there anymore. I think those things just kind of aged out. These things keep, they're like anything else in the technology world these days. They get improved pretty quickly. So that's why after 5 years we would probably look at another situation. I would suggest probably 5 years from now we'll probably have 8 or 10 of those things down there, and a lot of, maybe a number on private property at that point in time, because again, they are getting popular to drive. Again, it's an upper end situation, so that's who you got going down there.
yeah, and I do own an EV, and I have a young family, and so when we travel anywhere, it's the current situation today is we have to do a little bit of research before we start traveling. First thing I look at is what amenities are there, where we can go to eat, where can we, as a place to get the kids out, and so downtown Belmont just makes so much sense because we have so much to offer. for people who are coming through this area. So it's really something that I think could bring a lot of people who are new to Belmont to the area, because they're going to look and say, wow, look, there's all this stuff. We have all these things to pick from. We can go shopping. We can go to the park. You know, we can spend 4 hours here, let the car charge, and have a great afternoon. So I think, you know, it'd probably honestly benefit more people from out of Belmont than the residents here, because, you know, most EV cars are not going to need to charge close to home. So if you're a Belmont resident, you're not going to need to go downtown to charge. You're probably going to charge at your house or at your work or wherever you normally charge. But, you know, people are going to be going along 85. They're going to be looking for where they can pull over for an hour or two and have lunch or have dinner. And so we think Belmont should be on their list.
God forbid anybody from Charlotte come over here and try to think about moving in and having dinner here one night.
I like the park and plug statement. That's pretty good. All right.
So I think we have one more slide.
Yeah. On average, we could see that they spend more time and money in local communities, and we're looking at the potential of spend here, $75 to $100 an hour, and benefits will exceed the investment. Cost of installation, $15,000. Annual maintenance without the grant, $1,000. Cost of the city today, $0.
Now, just to be clear, as I recall from the original presentation and reviewing the terms of the agreement, it's a 5-year agreement. There's an option for a 6th year, but after that 6th year, we either take ownership of it and we would assume the maintenance costs,
Right.
or Duke comes and takes everything back.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yes.
And like I said, that's why I call this literally a test drive.
Yes. Well, that's
Okay.
good. Yes.
Is there a cost for Duke to remove it? If, let's say, 5 years come and we don't want to renew it?
I don't know.
I think it would be it might be in the agreement. I mean, I would assume it would be at their cost. Yeah.
Okay.
And I will say, I work for Wells Fargo. We just redid our EV charging across the city of Charlotte, and we found somebody else to come in and buy out those spots and pay for that. So 5 years down the road, there's better technology. We find somebody else. If you guys want to go with someone else, they might be interested in paying for that for us. So it's not necessarily a certain cost on that.
Oh, yeah. There's 5 years goes faster than people think.
Well, it does. And technology moves faster than in 5-year periods, too.
You're right.
Moore's Law says in about 2 years, there'll be something else to put in there. So.
And just to be clear, this is a level 2 charger, so this is not the fast chargers that charge like a full electric vehicle in 30 minutes. So that's why I'm saying, people who are going to come to use this, for it to mean anything for their car's range, they're going to have to spend at least an hour here. So that's why it's important that it's somewhere where they can go, spend time or spend money in our city for it to be worth it to us.
Well, I agree, because I think we were originally talking about the visitors center as potential. The visitor center that is not, in fact, open to visitors.
Yes.
And
non-visitors.
yes, one of the reasons we didn't like that option is precisely because they just sort of be there. Unless they want to go hang out at the Ford dealership, there's not a lot.
Not a big draw, is it?
Yeah.
Did you all consider any other sites besides these 3? Because I'll tell you, the first presentation that you made on this, you presented parking behind City Hall, which was ruled out because of parking concerns. The second concern that's come up is there may be a realignment of Catawba Avenue for a master plan for the Stowe property. So, I mean, for me, that's off the list immediately because we don't know what the future holds for that site. The other one that you've got here is prime parking behind 2 Chicks for events at our Stowe Park, which, I was concerned about the struggle for parking. If you've got 2 open EV spots, we're going to have people probably taking those spots with gas vehicles. They're open, they're going to park there. How do we enforce it? I mean, do you guys envision any kind of enforcement? Because if that happens and you have an EV come up and they've got 2 gas vehicles parked at their charging station, that's going to create a problem. We're going to have some sort of mechanism for enforcement, towing or something.
I don't disagree with that. We have about what that enforcement would be. I think we need to talk with our law enforcement folks, see what they would recommend, something like that, and come up with something. I think we can also research what other towns that have done this have done in terms of enforcement. I mean, we're not the only guys that have ever done something like this before. You know, they've got them in Charlotte and things like that where Duke's giving them a grant. There's ways we could find what people are already doing, find out sort of what the norm is, and report back to you on that.
Well, let me ask you, when this first came up, Councilman Schrift was on city council, and the second preferred site other than Glenway's parking lot was the police department, public property relatively close to downtown.
Not in the city.
Was that given any consideration?
It was, and I believe, I don't know, Peyton, if you want to speak to that.
So we actually looked at many other sites than just the ones presented to tonight, but we talked with the police department, and we don't really have a lot of parking there either. So we ruled that out because they have events and trainings and things like that. So we looked at City Works, but there's not many amenities around here right now for people. So that's when the ESB, we focused in on downtown, and the board recommended those three properties.
And that was in order of preference, right? So that was behind City Hall, the Ford Center, and then by Two Chicks.
That's correct.
All right. Well, along the lines of Richard's comment, is that parking lot? Do we own that parking lot? Because I thought that building might be sold.
We do.
Okay, we own.
Oh, because we can't get the grant for non-city
Yes,
property.
yes, as we learned the hard way.
And relating to the comment about enforcement, I will say, like, as an EV driver, that's a problem everywhere. And it's not something that would be unique to us. There would probably be times that you'd have an EV driver who would complain that it's blocked. You'd have times where somebody complaining that they don't have a parking spot on a Friday Night Live event. But I guess my argument to you all to consider is that the benefits outweigh those few isolated incidents. For the type of business that you could bring in, you're putting Belmont on the map for people like me who, when I travel, I do my research and I pick where I want to stop. Also, I mean, Charlotte folks as well, you know, they might want to come out here, spend a few hours on a Saturday afternoon. And so I think, you know, net, you know, for 5 years, the amount of business that you could draw into Belmont exceeds the inconveniences of those isolated incidents that may occur.
I mean, I share some of Councilman Turner's concerns about the City Hall location. I'm sort of more open to the Ford Center.
My only concern with the Ford Center is that if we do something with that building, we'll almost certainly have to do something to the parking lot.
But yeah. Same thing with City Hall then, I guess.
I still tend to think we need to look back at City Works, because if you're going to have people come in, we're not super concerned about people spending money. It's certainly a nice thing, but we're trying to, I would think, provide this as a convenience for people coming into the area. And City Works, if you've got the Kevin Loftin Park, if I have a family with an EV, and the only people I know, my nephew owns one, and so they have 2 kids. So to my way of thinking, they would pick up something for lunch or wherever and take the kids to the park while the car's charging. Yeah. So I still think City Works is the best option.
Well, what about
I'm not opposed to that.
when the rec center opens? I don't know what our policies are regarding, like, what out of town people would they be able to get in or do something there? But, you know, wouldn't there be amenities in the rec center? There's like a concession stand, isn't there? And you know, there might be some things going on there in addition to the park. But I don't know what the plans are for residents vis-a-vis non-residents, how that's going to come to fruition.
But we're talking about 5 years too, because you're already looking at a restaurant up in East Belmont, so you're going to have things down in this area. So I think that's the best option. I'm not particularly thinking we want to give away anything in the city itself.
Is there any kind of deadline on this grant? Like, we have to make a decision by like June or something?
I don't believe we have a deadline, but we've worked probably for a
Yeah.
year and a half on this
Yes.
location, so
And we thought we had found one.
we thought we had found one, but they did not like it. So I think if we're going to do this, and it's something that the city wants to pursue, I would recommend making a decision this evening.
Well, the other thought I had was we've talked forever about doing a parking lot next to the police department. And
The police department is certainly not against expanding the parking lot. We do need more parking even though we can expand it, so if that's an option, I'm okay with that.
yeah, well, I mean, the Main Street Board for the last few weeks has been talking about that lot next to you guys and how we might be able to use that for parking. So, thought just popped in my head that rather than taking parking away for EV, we could actually build more parking and actually create a new parking space for the EV so that we're not kind of running into this problem where.
I like that idea, but currently that puts it outside the timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not something we're going to be able to decide tonight or.
Well, right, but I mean,
Yeah.
well, if we decided that we wanted to put it there, and then as part of our budgeting process, we could decide to fund a parking lot.
I think we need to just build that parking lot, take it on. That's another rabbit hole, but let's.
Yeah.
I haven't been up to the Ford Center's parking. Is the parking lot pretty bad up there where the Ford Center is? It is. So we would.
The original parking lot, I believe.
Okay. Let's say within the contract of the 5-year period, I mean, does it have to be locked in for 5 years? So what if the city hall or the Stowe Properties project comes forward? I mean, could we back out of it and Duke Energy is going to pay to move it within? I don't know what the timeline is for the Stowe property, but
I don't know. I know that we
Come up to the mic.
we've signed the contract, so I would say that the clock is already ticking on our 5 years. So I'm not sure what that would look like, and we can definitely reach out to the grant contact to see if we chose to move, what that would look like. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I mean, I agree with Martha's idea about this area, either the rec center or this facility to put the charging station. Because we need that. We need those parking lots downtown, and they need to be able to turn over. Committing them for an hour plus for a car to charge. I mean, I'm not sure I'm sold on that.
So where do we want to have the locations?
Just one.
Well,
do I?
Alex.
I mean, I'm not opposed to. I understand what Richard and Martha saying. I'm not opposed to just give it a try. I mean, this is something in the downtown area. This is something that would promote spending at our local businesses. So I do think there's the benefit of that. And then also, I mean, I don't think we currently have any now since Old Stones doesn't have theirs. So this is something that would put us on the map of spearheading this in our area of Gaston County. I don't know if Mount Holly has any or any of the other surrounding cities, but
Gastonia, Lowell, Bessemer City, Dallas.
so we're actually behind the 8 ball on it.
Actually.
So, I mean, I'm not opposed to behind City Hall. I don't know how long the Stowe property is going to take. Maybe we want to look at if would be willing, Duke Energy, if we need to back out of it within because I believe that whole area is supposed to change per the proposal. But I agree the area, if the Ford Center's parking lot needs to be redone, that would be kind of counterintuitive there. And then that space right across from Stowe Park bathrooms, being where that is, I just don't see it being viable there.
Does an Old Stone Steakhouse have a
They
charger
don't
station?
have theirs anymore.
They don't have
They're
them
They've
saying-
got a patio there now.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't been there yet. So I would say behind City Hall. I'd be in favor of that. But
I don't want to do that because if we're looking at a reconfiguration of that property, I think we either opt to do 5 years or we don't do this because you've got to give it a fair shot. So,
Well, for the same reasoning, we're not looking at renovating City Hall till we know what's happening with the Stowe property. I wouldn't put something there that we potentially have to move,
right.
depending on how fast this development progresses.
Are you in favor of the Ford Center?
He's in favor of City Works, I think.
I think in this area, City Works, as Mark said, I mean, we're providing a convenience. I mean, we're committing city property to a private entity to deliver their product. It's a convenience. I mean,
Mhm.
we're not offering to put a gas pump on city property for the 94% of the percentage of the people that drive gas vehicles.
So what locations are you recommending?
I'm recommending City Works. I'll make a motion that we approve the project at City Works and just see what happens. So we'll see if we get a vote for that.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
And we're also,
We are vote.
On,
Call for a vote on that.
all,
We have a motion and a second.
motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Very good. Ordinance amending a fee schedule for fiscal year of 2022 and 23. Bill?
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Hey.
So before you, we have an amendment to the fee schedule for the current fiscal year. Normally, we don't do a mid-year update, but if you remember at the last council meeting during other business, Mr. Turner had brought up potentially looking at our fees in our water and sewer fund, specifically some of the tap fees, and perhaps doing a cost analysis on some of those and seeing if there was a way we could reduce some fees. So our team went to work and got together the numbers, looked at the costs associated with some of these tap fees. The costs include the cost of supplies, cost of material, the labor costs, the cost for mobilization of the vehicles and equipment. And with that, we came with the numbers you have before you in green, listed on the fee schedule. And they were, in many cases, lower, and significantly lower than what the fee schedule had said for this fiscal year. So I wanted to present that to you for discussion, consideration. Of course, this would be lowering our fees for this year, and of course would see less revenue if they were to be implemented. And I did want to mention that we had one developer reach out, one small developer in town, asking if this would have an impact on our CIP projects in the future because we're getting less revenue. I shared with them, and I'll share with you that although you would have less revenue, we still have the system development fees that we charge to developers for these taps and for many other things. So we're still gathering those fees as well as the rates that our customers pay to kind of keep up with that stuff. So on top of those fees, we also have an added fee, which is the water meter box resetter fee. That's the last one down there on the first page in green. And that was just a new fee to capture some of the costs associated with meter set when we have to include and set the box and the resetter. So that's something we had not captured in the past, and I wanted to make sure we got that on this fee schedule update. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have or comments and let you guys have a discussion on what you think we should do here.
I just appreciate you reducing those fees.
well,
You never hear about that, do you?
Appreciate us because we're the ones that have to vote to approve it.
We appreciate you presenting.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Bill.
Let me ask you, I think I know the answer, but
Okay.
one of the things that we were talking about, if I wanted to add an irrigation meter,
Yep.
What is my cost now, just for the public consumption?
So if you were getting a new tap, an irrigation tap, we would probably go with the irrigation T-tap fee
Yes.
in that first level there, which would have been this year $1,750 plus the system development fee, which I have here, which is currently at, if I can find it, I think it's around $425, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So more than $2,000 currently as the current fee set. This would reduce it to just $860 for the T-tap plus that $425.
Which is good.
I mean, it's a lower cost.
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking me about that, want irrigation, but our costs were prohibitive. So if our goal is to sell water, this is gonna help us sell.
Yeah,
sell
and
water.
again, as the market suggests, if you lower costs, more people may participate in
Yeah.
the fee. So you could actually generate revenue by getting more people to purchase the fee.
And the idea is not necessarily that we're just lowering costs, but we're lowering costs. We're lowering the fees to be in line with the actual costs.
That's correct. Now, I will mention that, of course, that's sometimes hard to ascertain because it's an average, right? So some projects, if the water main is on the other side of the street, we've got to do a utility cut through the whole street. It's 6 feet deep. That's going to be more expensive. But we took the average of what we thought was reasonable, and that's kind of where the costs came.
Where do the current fees come from? Just
So since I've been Public Works Director, I have not done a cost assessment of these fees. What we've been doing is just going to the CPI raising fees according to the CPI index year over year. So I think it was definitely a good practice to go back, assess it. It was definitely time, and look at if we had been outpacing the CPI, which I think we had been.
Well, I think it's good. Mark is having an influence on me. I think it's good to have rationales for numbers and not just pull things out of thin air or whatever, but to make sure that they're supported by logic and reason and everything. So I think this seems good.
No, yeah, and I mean I appreciate your work on that. And I think bringing our fees in alignment with the costs and actually have it based on some real data is always a good thing. And then, to Richard's point, you're kind of setting up kind of a razor and blade economic model here where, you're cutting the cost of the razor, but making your money back on the blades. So in this case, the water sales.
Well, I mean, it looks like, again, for public consumption, those that aren't looking at this document, that our fees either held steady or went down for the most part. So that's good news.
Yes, and the ones we assessed. And like I said, there's still the system development fees, which we've talked about doing a rate study with those later in the year. But these are fees we can adjust now because this is something under your purview.
Anybody want to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve as
Second.
presented.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. All right. Next, develop a project list for legislative funding request.
Mayor, this comes about from the discussion at your retreat where we talked about a potential request to the General Assembly this year. They've granted a number of these in the past several years to a number of jurisdictions across the state for various types of park and recreation, downtown projects of that nature. So we put this on for you to begin that discussion, knowing we're approaching the time where we would need to make that request. I did look up the deadlines for submission of appropriation bills are in March. They have the request, the initial request has to be into the state Senate by March 9th, to the state House by March 29th. And then there's dates for each of those bodies for actually filing the bills, which they would have legislative staff prepare those after that. So we do have a little bit of working time here. We did talk at the retreat, possibly tying into the action on the Year of the Trail. We talked about the rail trail, the Abbey Creek Trail. We talked about potentially a fire station in the North Belmont area, the public safety boathouse. Those were some of the items we discussed. So this is really just to kind of begin that discussion period for you to think about what you'd like on your list. We can go as far as you want with that. Knowing the deadlines, you'd have your work session also to finalize the list if you wanted to make an initial cut and then think about what really needed to stay on the.
When will these be awarded if you were to secure one?
Well, that would be up to the legislative action sometime during this session while they're there this year, which could be, who knows? I mean, sometimes they don't adjourn till very later in the year or very early the next year. So,
Well, the reason I'm asking is psychology. It is the Year of the Trail. Because of that, they may be open to lending on trails because it's the Year of the Trail. It's a great photo op for that.
You can invite them out. They love those opportunities.
And just to clarify again, I think Mark, you mentioned this at the retreat. This type of funding cannot go through road improvements, correct?
They typically don't want to include anything of that nature. I know in most of these lists I've looked at in the past few years that I don't recall seeing any road projects since they have dedicated funding and set-asides for those areas. I mean, obviously that's a need we have, but I think our success chances would be better going in a different direction.
Technically prohibiting it, but it's like
it's kind of like Yeah, DOT is supposed to be doing that, just because it's not happening the way we think it should. I don't think we get to play it
No,
that
and
way.
again, I was just mentioning
Yeah.
that for clarification to the
Mhm.
public that we're not prioritizing on a trail over roads.
Yeah.
It's
But I
just
think we
what
certainly
gets approved.
should
And we've
ask for
talked
all
about
of
some
those.
other avenues for looking at
Well,
road improvements too.
Public safety, the fire station.
Right. I think we should, the trail part and then public safety and, you know, the boathouse, both of those, because all of those are important. And we'll see what they would like to offer us. In other words, if Mark and I had not, if I had not asked Dana Bumgarner and Mark as the good Republican help in that, because I'm the Democrat, we wouldn't have gotten 150,000. He was thinking I was going to ask for 50, so I asked for 150. So we got it. So I think we should ask for all of
They
it.
can't say yes if you don't ask.
That's right.
And we had discussed this too about potentially being generic as pertains to the greenway
Yes,
in
trails.
case one doesn't, or both of them. So that, let's say that the Abbey Creek Greenway has a green light. The other one doesn't have, the rail trail doesn't have a green light. We just put all that money towards the Abbey Creek,
Right.
as
Yeah, I
opposed
think
to
that's a good
specifically itemizing it.
Right.
Because then if that one doesn't go through, what do we do with that?
Correct.
Yeah, but I think when we're messaging this to them,
Yeah.
it would be important to mention that we've got two specific
Yes.
projects.
Right.
in
Right.
place.
Just not designating it for one trail,
Yeah.
because
Right.
God forbid something happens and we can't do it, and then we got to return it.
I would agree with Martha. I think what she's saying is let's throw it all up on the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, because I mean, one of my takeaways from the retreat was we have a bunch of really expensive requests.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to
Yeah.
include fire trucks, fire engines with that?
Well, you got a firehouse, you got the truck that's needed, the boathouse, which I think coincided with some public safety,
Yes.
and then of course the greenways. I mean, why don't you just throw them all out there and let them pick?
I'll add another one, like audio improvements for the City Works building. Because
That one would be appreciated.
yes,
And it's all based on betterment and improvement to the city anyway. So.
Well, I mean, I think what's going to appeal to them because it's the year of the trail. The trails, obviously, but public safety is always a winner.
yeah.
Anything to do with public safety, the fire station.
Didn't someone get a water plant or something like that we were looking at?
Yeah, very expensive
I
water
think
plant.
and that was a rather large appropriation. I think that city had fallen into their distressed category that the state's put on a lot of these smaller water systems that aren't generating nearly enough to support themselves. So they're giving them larger grants to help boost those structures.
That's what we
Makes
get for being
sense.
responsible.
Yeah.
I mean, does history on this tell us anything about preferential projects?
I mean, they've certainly funded park greenways, downtown improvements has been on a number of these.
I just think the timing, they're not going to be able to resist
The
Okay.
Greenway?
the Greenway
Year of the
during the
trail.
year of the trail.
Yeah.
Plus, we received $1 million last year, I believe, for the rec center on top of the additional recreation funding for the skate park, and then some capital improvement fund, ancillary stuff there.
Yeah, so that's not to say like just because it doesn't make the first round when they come back next year and amend the budget, I think just keeping them apprised of what our priorities are would be really helpful as they're advocating for us.
And we can pull a package together, draft package with these. So the trails, the boathouse, the fire station.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, those are all legitimate
Okay.
projects.
All right. And then we can have that ready for you to review, say at the work session, and then that still gives us time for submission well before the deadline.
That makes sense.
Okay.
It's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
All right.
And then probably if you also know, like, your legislators, reach out to them and kind of give them the nudge too. I'll text Donnie and tell him we had this discussion.
Yeah,
Since
he could
they're-
just write us a check for like $10 million.
Yeah.
Well, I keep hearing how eager they are to help. We just need to ask. So
Well, we're
yeah,
asking.
Yes.
And for those of you going to the town state dinner, that's another good opportunity to work on that.
I want to go. I don't think I indicated that,
I think today's the deadline too.
which is why I told Jamie before I forgot.
This Friday is? Okay.
I think I can go. I'll let you know tomorrow. If that's all right.
I'm going.
You have me? Good to go.
I'm going.
I think I can make it.
Me and Dot are going. We're going. Yeah.
Did you sign up?
Yeah.
Did you buy your ticket or I didn't buy?
Who are you talking to?
Mayor.
I signed up.
You bought your ticket?
You buy tickets?
Yeah, did you buy your ticket?
No.
Right. Yeah,
I'll get
that's
with
Jamie's gotta do it.
Huh?
Jamie's gotta order our tickets, cause
Yeah.
we both need to pay for our spouses'
Yeah.
ticket and that kind of thing, so
Yeah, because you're
Catch-
taking Sam too.
catch her after the meeting, yeah, that's what, she and I've been working on it.
All right. Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to approve this?
Does this require?
At the stage we're at, I don't think there's any need for any formal action yet.
Okay.
We can do that when we review the list in a couple of weeks.
Now, will we like put this in the form of a resolution and approve it as a resolution to, or how does that work? Or is it
I don't
just a
think it
list?
has to be. I think it's, you're going to make this request to them, just providing them the information and the documentation. They'll have somebody on the legislative staff draft this into whatever
Yeah,
form.
I don't think we put anything in writing, did we, with the skateboard
No,
park? I don't think we
no,
did, we just
So it's
talked to
just a
them.
request. I didn't
Yeah,
know
as
if
long
it
as
was
they-
just a
there's
request.
consensus on it, yeah, it doesn't have to be anything official.
Cool.
Okay. Next is committee reports.
And you have several board and committee reports in the form of minutes of their meetings included in your package. Tourism Development Authority, Environmental Sustainability Board, Planning and Zoning, and Park and Recreation, all those are included. For the manager's report, I did have a few items. As you've seen before, there are several upcoming events listed. We talked about the town state dinner, so we don't need to really address that.
That's the 22nd though, right?
It is the 22nd. For some reason, I thought I had read earlier it was the 21st, but
Oh, okay.
obviously I
It's 22nd.
don't read very well at my old
Wednesday and
age.
Thursday.
It's the 22nd.
Matt's able to get their numbers right most of the time, so.
Okay.
All right.
So Kevin is going to provide you the financial report this evening.
Sure. My quick 3 slides again. Let me pass this around to you all. The planning department jumped ahead a little bit on the last agenda item and put together the information that was requested. I believe you contacted one of our members from the legislature, and we prepared the project justification and importance for Abbey
Oh,
Creek
yeah.
Greenway
Yeah.
and Belmont Rail Trail. So we'll do the same for those other items.
Yeah, that was what Donnie had requested that we submit with the request to them, is just kind of the background and detail of what we're trying to do or accomplish.
We thought those 2 projects may be ones you brought up tonight, so we've already got that. We put some pretty pictures with it too, so we have something to present to them. Oh, time's up.
There you go.
All right. So on the audit status, the 22 is underway now. They've been uploading all that information, and Martin Starnes is jumping on that. So we still expect to complete in March and be able to go to LGC in May and get that approval in May or June. And that's what we have remaining for this building over here. As you see, it's coming along pretty quick. They just poured today. They're getting ready to, or almost finished, the sidewalk that leads from this parking lot directly to this side of the building. So it's coming along nicely. This is the same as before. The cash projections are right on what Jared had predicted on cash on hand and our expenses. And as you see, June is, wow, we need to get there. We need to cross his hurdle and get that $13 million back in the coffers in that month of June. And that last bar on that chart will go off the page when that happens. Any questions?
Can you go back? I sound like one of my students. Can you go back a slide?
Sure.
All right. 2.9. All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it? Oh, I thought you had a question on the.
Oh,
financial.
no, well, I just need, I wanted to see the figure, how much was left in construction costs.
Gotcha, okay.
And I missed it, so.
Okay. One other item I wanted to bring up under the manager's report, another discussion item at the retreat dealt with the issue of sewer capacity on the peninsula. At the end of last week, I sent you a couple of documents that Jerry Hatton had provided to me, studies that he had done previously. He also talked to me and said he had been giving this some additional thought from that discussion, and he has come to the conclusion and agrees that we do need to go ahead and have a sewer capacity study update done. So we're going to go ahead and begin that process and seek proposals from engineering firms to get that moving along as quickly as we can. So as soon as we have those proposals, we'll bring those to you for action on them.
Do you know how long it'll take once it's awarded? Okay. Yeah.
Would they, in their study, would they have the capacity to compartmentalize what they're doing? Meaning if we wanted them to look at the peninsula first, or do they have to look at the system as a whole at one time?
I was just prioritize
Yeah,
the
you
South.
could-
Prioritize
Sure.
the peninsula.
Yeah.
But just for the record, because that might not have been picked up, you know, what our city engineer said was that we are going to look not only at the peninsula, but
Yeah.
at other parts of town as well,
Well,
due
yeah.
to, well, people might not have heard that
Because he's not at
because
the mic.
he doesn't have, that's all I just wanted to say, yes.
Okay. And that was all just to mention again, since I mentioned this in the update last week, just for letting you know my schedule. I will be out of town Wednesday, but we'll be back in office Friday.
All right. And thank God the Main Street Conference and the City Vision Conference are close to home.
Those are all close by.
Yes.
That's good, Black. That's good.
Well, Wilmington was kind of nice. I mean,
Yeah. It's
not
be
gonna lie.
helpful. All right. Other business. Mark, I'll start you out.
Yeah, I kind of hinted at this earlier, but is part of our capital planning process and the whole budget process for this year, is it possible to get like a cost estimate of what it would take to turn that area next to the police department into a parking lot?
Sure. We can look at that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'd appreciate that because that's something Main Street's been working on for a while, and I know it's a priority of this council too. So if we could start putting some numbers on that, that would be great. That's it.
Okay.
Hey, Martha?
2 items from me. Tiffany gave me all the information to hand to the Feemster family. I got that to them the end of last week. I will call him sometime this week to follow up so we kind of get a feel for what they think is okay or not okay with that. We've gone 1 step forward and 2 back. They finally activated the light at the middle school on Friday. And I had a complaint Friday night, and Bill has had another one. They did not put any signage about traffic shift, anything like that. So we had people at night, Friday night, coming into what they thought was Bellwood, and it was blocked. He's contacted DOT and it's not heard back. So just so you are aware of that, that was very unprofessional for that to be done in that way. They could have told us and we could have moved a sign, something, but it's very unfortunate. But the light is activated, so at least we have one step forward and two back. And that's all for me.
Okay. Myself, nothing. Duke's playing tonight.
I hope Duke loses. Just a couple things. I've heard some complaints, and I don't know whether this is us or it might be putting a bug in DOT's ear, but I know we've got the spring cleanup coming up, but there's been a lot of trash maybe along Central and Main Street, like going up near the Point or elsewhere, so maybe just make a note of that. And I've also, they did, I don't know, I can't remember what exactly they did on Stowe Road, the south side of Stowe Road as you go down South Point Road, like just when you turn off of South Point Road, like those properties. I remember them doing something, but there's still some ponding there when it rains and everything. Okay. I just think there's still some ponding, and like when it got cold, that water was freezing, so it was causing some issues. And then just maybe it's time for a code enforcement update at some point soon.
I got that. I received that today,
Okay.
and I was going to send it out
Okay.
later
Just
this week.
Keeping tabs on that. So
I have it.
all right, that's all.
Yeah, I've got a couple of items. We had discussed with Shelley before she left, and I don't know if she had it in the hopper, but there was some discussion of creating a 1 acre overlay on the peninsula. And I want to find out, get an update if that's in the hopper, or do you still need direction to move in that direction?
I think that's what when I think planning board's talked about density on the peninsula.
Yeah, that's
so
part of what they wanted to
yes.
discuss with you.
Okay. Also, listening to Matt, it was my understanding, are we not having a combined meeting with Planning and Zoning Board on February 16th? I mean, based on listening to Matt, I think we need to meet with him.
I have no objection to that. I'll just be in New Jersey that week, so.
So you have no objection.
I don't know if that's better or not, but.
Well, it would probably be better if everyone was there. I mean, we can pencil it in for another date that the full council can be there if that's what everyone wants.
Well, I don't know if our workshop date would work for the planning board.
Do we have anything currently scheduled for the February workshop?
Was there? Oh, yes, the Deaton Drive and city-owned property item, but
I mean,
if
with the 16th,
if the planning, since we can't have everyone in attendance at the 16th, if we want to look at another date.
Well,
well, we know they will all be there on the 16th.
yeah, I mean, I'm good with the 16th. They said
You want to dial in?
I'm fine with the 16th.
Yeah, I mean, if it works for everybody else, that's fine with me. Won't get my feelings hurt.
Does that work for you, Martha?
I think so. What time did you say on the 16th?
They've offered to start at 6 o'clock.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
So,
Is it possible to get some background on the, he hinted at some, I guess, legal questions around the major development process versus a conditional use process and.
well, that's, remember when we were talking about the revising the major development plan process,
Right.
why it comes for a hearing when it's by
Right.
right, and we said, well, let's do it conditional, and well, that's the issue, that apparently the statute says you can't do it conditional, so we'd either have to do it like we're doing it now, completely administrative, or special use permit. But apparently the statute, there's some general statute in North Carolina that says we can't do it conditional, which is sort of what we had settled on as the change to, like, if you get above a certain threshold, it's conditional.
Right.
Apparently you can't do that pursuant to North Carolina general statute. So I think that's what he was referring to.
Okay.
All right. Couple of other items, just for Barry and staff, that was a great retreat that we had. I thought that was very productive. It was for me.
Yes.
I felt the structure of the retreat was more conducive to getting some things done than maybe some other formats. So I appreciate everybody's input.
Yeah.
That was very good. I would like for us also to consider continuing with our discussion at some point on the potential of the city bonding certain roadway projects, if that's deemed appropriate to have that discussion, and if so, if it's deemed appropriate to bond, then select what road projects, because I think we all realize DOT's timeline is very extended. Our problems are critical and current, and that's all I had.
And I think, again, from some information that was sent out into the week, we've looked at some of the other jurisdictions in our area that have done that and looked at some of those bond packages. So that is certainly something that if you wanted to move forward, we could start working on.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be
Yes.
interested
I'd-
in that.
Yes.
I had that written down. I figure out maybe if we could go ahead and pencil on a date. Maybe we can do it via email when we could have that as a discussion.
Well, we could start that at the workshop.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, rather get the ball rolling on that one. So.
I also want to know what these other municipalities are finding with regard to partnering. If the DOT does not have funds, they're partnering with DOT.
Yeah,
I don't
I want to get a
say
little
this,
more, because
yeah.
there was one particular, I think it was Cornelius, where they talked about given what they were putting in, they were able to leverage so much in DOT funds. So I want to find out how. I'm assuming they're pulling projects that are on the state's list,
Right.
but how they're getting that extra money, I'm not sure.
Are you talking about contributing dollars to the project?
State.
Us
Oh,
contributing?
bond
Yeah, that's what we
dollars,
need to
bond
look
dollars.
into before we jump into the bond part.
Well, this may or may not be relevant, but Randy Gates has a model where she ran some projects here, and that if we were contributing, I think it was up to $2 million. And because of other data that they input, crash data and other items, it did not move the needle substantially. So
Yeah, because there was that one intersection at
Keener and Central. Yeah.
Yeah, where basically, I think she had modeled it out at like putting in like $2 million or something. And it still didn't hit the STIP. And basically the issue was that there weren't enough fatalities and other severe bodily injuries at that intersection for DOT to prioritize it, which is
I mean, I would love to get their money.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not sure how that, because I know in some of those other cities that we had that information, they were just putting bond dollars into state roadways just to move it ahead. But there was the one particular one, I think was Cornelius, indicated they were able to leverage. So that's the one I want to.
Well, I think most of our problem areas are on state roads or
Yeah.
projects that are identified on the STIP. So, you know, there's got to be an opportunity to do something with that.
Alice, you got anything to add?
I did. Are you done? First of all, I want to thank the DBDA and, of course, City Council and everyone that's been involved. East Belmont looks amazing. That project's coming ahead. A lot of positive feedback from talking to people in the community. I can't wait to see what the finished project are going to look like. Real quick for Barry, at our last the joint meeting with the hiring firm for the new city manager, they said they were going to send us the posting, or what they were going to post to the posting site by today. Have they given out any information on that?
I haven't. Tomorrow, was it?
I think it was today. They were going to do
Monday.
I haven't seen it. I know he was wrapping up. I only had my session with him on Friday, but I'll certainly check with him in the morning.
Okay. And then state dinner, I had the bonds. The only other thing I have is that I expressed to Jamie interest in participating or being some kind of, I don't even want to know, but just kind of a member, if they can even offer that for the Lake Wylie commissioners. I do have interest in the Lake Wylie. They've voiced in the past about having some type of representative at the meetings. I think it's open invitation to anybody. So I did ask Jamie that. So I just wanted to be transparent that I asked Jamie that as well.
You know about the Marine Commission?
Yeah, the Lake Wylie Marine Commission.
I mean, I have no problem making you our official.
Well, I don't know if they're going to even have an official position for that, but.
The liaison.
Okay.
I mean, officially, I think there's some sort of nominating or vetting process to get on that board.
Attending. But I just wanted to be transparent that I mentioned that. So that's all I have. Oh, sorry, one more thing. And this might be directed to the DBDA, sorry. And the Main Street Board. I don't think we ever received any other future updates in regards to the social districts. I thought we had talked that we wanted to look at what other surrounding cities were going to do. I'm curious if any of those statistics or any of that data is available.
Yeah, we decided we'd like to wait to report on that until after the Main Street Conference, which is the second week of March. We will be attending some sessions on social.
And also, on February 24th, Steve DeAbria from GBA has set up a meeting for the whole county, everybody to get together. So we're going to discuss.
What's the date on it, Kevin?
February the 24th.
And is that for the social district specifically?
This meeting is Social District Forum.
Corky, can we have one of our officers or someone also attend that? Okay. I was about to say, I want to make sure you guys have full input on the social districts. That's all I have. Sorry.
Good. All right. Well, is there a motion to go into closed session?
I will move to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-138.11A3